Hi, welcome back to another Cooking Matters recipe video. I'm Chef Asata and today we are making soup. I love soup. Soup is a great way to use up a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It is an awesome way to get all of your veggies in without feeling like you're eating yet another boring salad. And soup is comforting. I call soup a hug from the inside. So let's get started. To build your soup, you can just use our super easy framework. You're going to want a protein. You can use meat, but today I'm going to use beans. Beans are economical, they're high in fiber, they're loaded with protein. Then you're going to want to select a range of vegetables, whatever's on sale, whatever's available, whatever you have on hand. We're going to add a whole grain to this soup. Today I'm using whole wheat pasta, but if you had some leftover cooked brown rice or quinoa or barley, that could go right into your soup as well. And then you want to select your flavorful liquid. That's going to be the broth of your soup. I'm going to use a vegetable broth today, but chicken broth would work, or chicken broth, chicken stock, either one. You could even use water. You just have to dial up the flavor with additional herbs and spices to make sure you have a nice flavorful liquid to go in your soup. Let me get the pasta started first. We've got some beautiful whole wheat penne that we're going to use today. We just got it in some boiling salted water so that it cooks al dente. You don't want to overcook your grains because you're going to put them in the soup. They're going to cook a little bit more in there. You don't want them to get mushy. So today I've got some onions and carrots and celery. We call that our mirepoix. That is the base of so many soups and sauces that I can't even begin to run them off the top of my head. But you're going to want to start with an onion, some carrot, and some celery. And because it's summer, I've got some great zucchini available. And delicious wouldn't be delicious without a little bit of garlic. So let's get all of this chopped up. And that'll be the base for our soup. And I'm also going to add our cannellini beans. These are like white kidney beans that I'm using today. I always look for that little circle on the can that says no salt added. And then I rinse my beans anyway. It takes that kind of canned bean taste away. But if I can't find no salt added beans, rinsing them reduces the sodium in the beans by 1/3. First, let's cut up our onion by slicing off both ends and then cutting it in half. So we've got nice flat surfaces to work with versus round surfaces that roll around on the cutting board. Next, I'm just going to follow the lines that are sort of mapped out on the onion and cut into the core. Turn it 90 degrees, slice down, and I've got a diced onion. All right, next let's prepare our carrots. Just going to peel them real quick with a vegetable peeler. Now, one of the things with soup is you want to cut everything kind of small so that you can get multiple tastes and textures on your spoon at one time. So we want to cut everything into small dice so that when we're eating our soup, every spoon is loaded with flavor. I would say, contrarily, if you're not going to cut everything small, make a decision to cut everything big and chunky, you know, like a stew. The benefit of cutting things into a small dice is that they cook faster. If you have big chunky pieces, like a stew, you're going to have to let it cook longer. Okay, I'm just taking the ends off of those carrots. Then I'm just going to slice them in half. Again, flat surfaces, right? That's much safer to cut than a big round carrot. For the large ends, I will quarter those. And for the small ends, I will just halve them. Once you have your carrots all cut into sticks, you can go ahead and dice them. Keep your fingers tucked under into a cloth, including those pinkies and thumbs, to keep them out of the way of the blade. Let's get our celery ready. I just broke off 2 ribs of celery. Always give it a good rinse because sometimes dirt and grime likes to settle down in there. Again, we want it small, so we have pieces that fit on the spoon. I'm just going to cut these 2 ribs right down the middle like that. Line them up, chop them up. If you're not composting, these little bits and pieces can also be saved and frozen so you can make your own stocks and soups in the future. Just keep them in like a Ziploc bag or something like that in the freezer. And when it gets nice and full, you can cook it all up into your own soup, stocks and broths for soup. Okay, next we're going to work on our zucchini. We're going for a full 2 cups of vegetables for this soup. The zucchini is not going to go in when the other vegetables go in though, because it's a softer vegetable. I want to save it towards the end so it maintains its texture. So we've got another round vegetable here. First thing I want to do is create some flat surfaces to work with. And then go ahead and quarter the zucchini and slice it up. Last thing we need to prep is our garlic. We're just going to break off a couple of cloves here. And we'll use our knife to peel them by smashing them. So just put your cloves on the cutting board, place your knife on top of the clove, and then press. And the cloves pop right out. If you don't have fresh garlic, you can use garlic powder. We don't want you using garlic salt though, because of the sodium, right? You can't control the sodium that's in garlic salt. So use garlic powder, or also it's called granulated garlic, in lieu of the fresh. So we're just going to mince this up, which means to chop it really fine. And the way you get garlic minced is you just run your knife over it again and again. Continue pushing it into a little pile and then chop again. Alternatively, you could use a garlic press. So here's our cooked pasta, whole wheat penne, and you can see it's doubled in size from the dried pasta. And that's what you can pretty much expect from any whole grain or any grain. It's going to puff up and double in size as you cook it. So this is ready for our soup. Let's go ahead and get started cooking. We're going to crank up the heat under our pot and get about a tablespoon of oil heating in there. You just want to wait until you can see the oil shimmer. That lets you know it's hot enough to carry on cooking. And we're going to cook our mirepoix first. That's our onions, carrots, and celery. Swirl that oil around. And if your oil's hot, you should get a nice sizzle when you go in the pan. Yes, that is what you want to hear. So there go our onions, carrots, and celery. We want these vegetables to cook for a little while, develop some flavor, maybe even caramelize a little bit. Taking a little time in the beginning is going to help develop the flavor for your soup and give you a nice base. When you take that time to develop the flavor and kind of build layers of flavor, you don't have to rely on things like fat and salt to season your food. So it really is worth it to give it 5 minutes in the pan just to caramelize. You know, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to add some tomato to this soup, because if you add a little bit of tomato product while your mirepoix is going, it cooks down and it enhances the caramelization. Tomatoes naturally have a bit of sugar in them, so it helps with that process. You could use a couple of spoons of maybe a jar of pasta sauce that you had open in the fridge, even a squirt of ketchup, but a little bit of tomato is going to help caramelize the vegetables that we've got in our pot. So I'm just going to dice it up and add it to the mirepoix that's already cooking in there. Onions, carrots, and celery. The juice from the tomato is going to help deglaze the pan, so I can get all those wonderful brown bits of flavor up off the bottom of the pan as well. Okay, we've got some good coloration going on in here, a little caramelization. I can see some browning happening on the pan. Let's move forward by getting a little garlic in there, our minced garlic. Let that cook just until it's aromatic. Nice. And since we've got some more caramelization going on, I'm going to use our broth. We're using veggie broth. Remember I mentioned a flavorful liquid? I'm going to use that to deglaze the pan again, because we added the tomatoes. We've got additional caramelization. We want to get that flavor up off the pan. So we've got some great caramelization going on here. We added the tomatoes, which is like a double caramelization. We're going to deglaze the pan by using our vegetable broth. Let's get all that brown, yummy flavor up off the bottom of the pan. So we've got 4 cups of vegetable broth. You could use chicken stock. You could even use water, but if you use water, you're going to need to season this up a bit. Water's a little bland, okay? Stir that in. Let's get our heat back on high. because we want to bring this to a boil. Anytime you use a prepared product or even a homemade product, if you're using a stock or broth, you want it to come up to a boil just in case there's any bacteria hanging out, you know you've taken care of it. Okay, so while that's coming together, let's get our cannellini beans in the pan. Let's get our zucchini in the pan, because we don't want that zucchini to overcook. That's why we didn't put it in first. This is a great place for it to cook though. And in a few minutes, we'll get that pasta in the pan. But since it's already ready to go, we'll just wait till the end, last maybe 5 minutes of the soup, and let it all come together. So we want to continue building layers of flavor. Let's get some dried herbs in here. Fresh herbs are great when they're available, but dried herbs can stay in your kitchen a little longer. That way, if you ever need to add some flavor, you've got something up in the pantry you can just grab. Today, we're gonna continue to kind of follow this Italian theme we've got going with a little oregano and basil. When I use herbs and spices, I am not shy. People often are like, oh my gosh, you're gonna put all that in there? Yes, yes I am, because I want my food to be flavorful without relying on salt. So in goes some basil, about a teaspoon, and a teaspoon of oregano. We're gonna stir this up, put a lid on it, and let it come up just to a quick boil before we add our pasta. Give that a few minutes and our soup will be done. It'll come together just like that. Okay, our soup is rolling. We've got a little gentle boil going here. So I'm gonna turn it down just a bit. Get our pasta in. You need about a cup and a half of cooked grains. So we'll go with about a cup and a half of our cooked pasta. Save the rest of that for a yummy pasta salad later, or even a nice red meat sauce. Stir in the pasta. And we're gonna put the lid on for just a few more minutes so that the pasta can absorb some of the flavors from the broth and the vegetables that are cooking in there. Let's season it though with a pinch of salt and a little bit of pepper. Okay, so over low heat, go ahead and let your soup just sort of come together, and then we'll be ready to eat. So now we're ready for the big reveal. Ooh, look at that. By adding the cooked pasta and letting it kind of simmer in there for a little while, it helped to thicken up the broth from the starch from the pasta. So we are just gonna scoop some of this beautiful soup out. It is so colorful. You get the pops of orange from the carrots, and since the zucchini didn't overcook, it's still a beautiful shade of green. Got our white beans in here for protein. Our whole wheat pasta is a whole grain. And we even have some background vegetables fill in here, the onions and the celery. I can see bits of the herbs floating in the broth, and boy, does that look good.